as challenges that you guys face being horror filmmakers, what are the biggest ones that you guys have?
I think it's everything we just talked about. You know, it's trying to scare people and stay true to the genre while at the same time delivering a piece of art and something that, you know, aesthetically and emotionally is, you know, brings the same sensations that any sort of art film would. It's finding that marriage between the two, between genre and art, that I think is really the biggest challenge in horror, and that's movies like The Shining and Rosemary's Baby, I think, are the ones that do that masterfully.
Steve and I were talking before this about, I think one of the hardest things being a filmmaker is it's a business, and I think the art, me as an artist, always gets wrapped up in the art part of it, and I always forget, I don't care that it's a business. And it sucks that as an artist you make a piece of art, and then you put it through a machine of people telling you how to make your art more mainstream. And what happens is you take something that you're very proud of, and then you see it go through this machine and change and change and change to put it out there for populations. And I think that that's hard, is trying to maintain a vision, because, you know, a lot of times I've seen amazing films that have gone straight to DVD because they don't want to market them, and the filmmakers say we're not going to compromise. This is our art. And that's the hard part, is at what point do you sacrifice your art to make it for the business? And, you know, I was lucky with the Saw films because it was like a machine that turned out these films. And then I went off and said, I'm going to make art. I'm going to do something artistic. I'm going to make Repo. Repo opened in 2 theaters. Saw opened in 4,000 theaters. Repo opened in 2. And I think it's because I said, screw you, this is what I want to do. And I think that for me is the hardest part of this whole business right now, is having to sacrifice and compromise.
I would absolutely agree. The biggest challenge I've had has been the suits. And, you know, it's a business, and love them. They keep us in business, and they pay us, and they do the thing. But the truth is, when I got started, it was literally Dimension and New Line. They were the only guys making horror movies. And everybody else looked down their noses at you and thought that you were less than, you know, a real movie maker. And that was fine, because it still paid the bills and did the thing. But then Kevin wrote Scream, and the whole lid blew off the thing. Suddenly, every studio decided, you know what, we can make money at this. And they all jumped on board, and now everybody makes horror. Every studio, every production company has a genre department. And they come in with, you know, 20, 22-year-old, and no offense against that. I mean, young guys know how to scare as well as older guys. But they come in and they tell the writer, they can't do what the writer does, they can't do what the director does, but they tell us what they think will make money. And so we either do what they say or we don't work. And that, to me, is the biggest challenge. It's finding that balance.
I think another big challenge is that right now, not just in the horror film, but in just overall in this studio world in general, in most genres except for maybe comedy, what feels safe are pre-known properties, which means they're based on a book, they're based on a comic book, they're a sequel, or they're a remake. Now, probably every one of us on this table has worked on a sequel or a remake. And it's not because we don't have original stuff. We all have, I guarantee you, every one of us has several original scripts that we're proud of, that are cool, and that are really, you know, we'd love to see made. We make our living by writing and making the remakes and the sequels, because that's where people who have the money feel comfortable putting their money, because they feel that the audiences are going to pay to go see those, because they feel like, well, okay, someone else has already put their money behind this property in book form or comic book form, or it's already been proven as a movie or a TV show. So you have that. I think the other big challenge for horror specifically is that there's such a drive to, well, you have to explain that. You have to really explain that. Now, horror is scarier if you don't understand stuff. And there's such a push, you know, when we get notes from executives, to explain every little detail, and that takes away, from so much of the fear. Adam and I always love to joke about how The Ring would never have the story it has if it had started out as an American movie. Thank God it was a remake, because there's no way, you know, if we had come out with a script where you watched a videotape and then the phone rang and the voice said you had 7 days to live.
Yeah, they would have gone, wait, so what's the videotape have to do with the phone? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, you put in a video and the ghost calls you. I mean, and could you explain that logic? And it would be like, well, but it's great, it's scary, it's cool. It's like, but it doesn't make any sense. No, you need to think of a new set of rules for that. I mean, but don't you understand? I mean, this woman, it's like she's, you know, when she was in a well 7 days, but see, then why is the ghost calling? If you're watching on a videotape, you know, I mean, you can hear the notes just coming rolling down, but I mean, it's very easy to go sit and you know, as people as filmmakers, it's very easy to bag on the suits. You know, I mean, it's because, they're motherfuckers. But the fact of the matter is, you know, when you're trying to create something that's good and scary and original, and you're trying to do something that's gonna scare you and stuff. The fact of the matter is, you know, that's a difficult process. Like painting, painting a beautiful painting is difficult. And I find that more often than not in screenplays, I fuck up more than I succeed. I mean, you know, for every one really good script or movie I direct, actually I've only directed 3 movies, so gosh, I hope I do a good one someday. But for every one good script I've written, there are literally 4 ones that aren't that good. It's like, it's patience and work on the craft. I mean, in order for me to get out what's in my head, it's not just writing. It's, you know, there's work involved. Yeah. Peter Katz is giving hand signals, and I have no idea what they mean. Peter, what does this mean? He does another one. He does this. Okay, do you know what they mean? Okay.
Do you hear what the guy from Underworld says?
Okay, let's hear what the guy from Underworld says.
I would know what screws with you. Did anyone tell you anything?
Well, I would have to agree with them. I think the biggest challenge you have is trying to get producers to understand what you're trying to do. Because they're not used to, I mean, really they're not geeks. They're not genre guys like we are. And so they're going off a lot of preconceived notions of what horror, you know, might have been way back in the day. I remember with Underworld, I had a big argument with one of the producers, with someone else we were pitching a concept to, about what the werewolves would look like, or the Lycans. And, you know, I wanted them to be, you know, bipedal, snout-nosed creatures, whereas he wanted them to look like Sabretooth from the X-Men, or that movie that Jack Nicholson did, Wolf, where they had like mutton chops and long fingernails. I'm like, you know, I laughed. And he was like, no, I'm serious. He said, and they think they know what it is that we like. And he said, well, you know, the audience is going to understand that. I'm like, excuse me? I'm like, I think they won't understand what you're saying, because how is that wolf like? But, you know, that's the challenge, and they don't want to take chances. And that's the sad part. So I think the more you can convince them with visuals, which is what I like to do, a lot of horror comics, you know, like I'm doing a movie called I, Frankenstein, which is based off an upcoming comic I'm doing. Zombies of Mass Destruction is based off a comic I'm doing. So once they see the visuals, it's easier to lead them down the path you want them to go. And that's what I try to do.